Hi, I'm Mark from Derby Paranormal Investigators. Have you ever wondered what it is we do on investigations, how we do it, a little bit more about the team, and just general information that, you just want to ask us? Well, keep watching this video and we'll show you and tell you what it is we do. Good example is, we're here tonight at this lovely location to investigate possible haunting goes on. Who knows what might happen? But that's what's all being about a paranormal investigator is about. Hi, I'm Mark from Derby Paranormal Investigators. I'm the lead and founder of the team, and we've been running from 2013. I first became interested in the paranormal. It was actually a job that I had. I was working at a site that basically was all locking up, and doors were just opening and closing randomly. I was going to lock things and then I'd come back later and then they'd be open again. And it's kind of spiraled a little bit from then. I mean, television shows like Ghost Adventures, things like that, didn't help. That just makes you go on to look for things a little bit more. But I started setting up cameras and it just kind of spiraled from there, I guess. Yeah, basically the interest spiraled obviously from my work, so it kind of all started from then. I did a little bit of investigating myself by setting up the cameras and recording things, and that was how I kind of proved what I was hearing. That I only heard bangs on the footage, but it kind of was like, right, I need to start looking into this a bit more. And that was basically from there how I then started looking around for locations and how almost like the team began. Essentially, I wanted to look for, other people that were experiencing the same thing, so I could share what was going on with other people. So that was basically how the team started. I started the team, Derby Paranormal Investigators. It's actually a lot longer than I thought ago. It was actually in February 2013. It only feels like yesterday, actually. Originally, we only started with, I think it was myself. We had another team. I think there was only about three of us at the original team when we first started. And we did basically a bit of a test investigation for our first ever investigation we did, just to kind of almost get our feet, learn the equipment, that kind of thing. Because I'll be honest, when you first do it for the first time, it's not, you've got to kind of test it out. You can't just go straight to the most haunted location in Britain and expect everything to just, work. So it's always good to test out things before. So yeah, February 2013, long time ago now. I mean, what's that, 5, 6, 7 years, something like that. So it's been a while now since we've done it. So yeah, February 2013, and then it's just grown since. I think the term professional can be kind of misinterpreted in what we do. We consider ourselves professionals, but I think in terms of paranormal investigating, I think if you're calling yourself a professional at what you do as a paranormal investigator, I think you've got to put that towards the point of being professional in how you conduct yourself and perform and just do the investigation itself, but not say, right, I'm professional at capturing EVPs or professional at capturing ghosts, just simply because you've caught loads of EVPs. That could just be luck, basically. I think the term professionalism towards paranormal investigators, nobody is a professional, because we're all out there. Nobody knows how to capture an EVP properly. Nobody knows if there is ghosts. It's all research. So professionalism for us as a team is how we conduct ourselves when we're on investigations, and setting examples like having insurance, doing risk assessments, doing all them safety things that not many other groups do, which actually, believe it or not, doesn't happen. Many teams don't have insurance, some do, some don't. And it's one thing that you should be looking at, because when you're going in these buildings, a lot of these places that are haunted are very old and derelict, and there is loads of safety problems. So look at the bigger picture. So professionalism for us is literally looking at the things that nobody else does and setting a more example within our field so that people trust us a little bit more. Well, obviously one of the key things, as I've just mentioned, is we're more professional, as I say. But the one thing one of our kind of team mottos is that we like to be different in many ways, and that can be, obviously I've already mentioned about the insurance side of things and the safety, but there's also things to do with equipment. Just because you've seen it on TV doesn't necessarily mean you have to use it. Just because certain TV personalities are going around with a certain device doesn't mean it'll work for you, and doesn't necessarily mean that it's a ghost tool. One of the general misconceptions with equipment is that it's designed to capture ghosts. No piece of equipment, regardless of what it's called, is designed to capture ghosts, because it's all research. None of us know what is designed to capture ghosts, see ghosts, or to kind of delve into that realm. So one of the key features for us as a team is we like to look into that a bit more, and rather than going into a property and saying, right, this is haunted, we like to look into a little bit more of the history. So that's another thing that we do. We look into the history of these buildings we go into, rather than just going in and walking around with a mini EMF meter. So we do like to kind of change things as much as possible. So there is a lot, to be fair, there's a lot of things we do on investigations that are different, but you have to come on an event or something like that and see our techniques and the way we do things. And that is one of the biggest things we get comments on quite a lot at public investigations, is that we are very different. And we like that because we like it as a niche. It's one thing we strive as a team to be different, especially in such a field that people are doing very similar things. I mean, we don't do table tipping, we very rarely use mediums, we very extremely rarely use Ouija boards. We use them as trigger objects, so it would just sit there and see if it moves. So that in itself is something we do differently to other teams. Yeah, as well as doing public events, not many people know we actually do go into people's homes. It's actually probably it's more common. We actually go in people's homes and do private investigations more than we do public events. And the reason behind that is simply because that's what a paranormal investigator does. We always say to people, it's kind of comical, we always say we're the real Ghostbusters, and essentially that's what we are, you know. And it is the saying of, you know, when there's bumps in the night and all these different noises going on, who are you going to call? I know it sounds very cliche with the whole Ghostbusters, but who is it? You can't call the emergency services just because you've seen a ghost now. They'll probably put you in a psychiatric ward. So we're kind of them people that go out and try and find out for these people what is going on in their home. So public events just gives those who don't experience or don't want to run their own team or kind of want to experience what we do but only on occasions. So it's good for them to come on a public event and experience, especially with equipment. A lot of the equipment we use is very expensive. So for you to pay £20-25 for an event to come and, I don't know, use an Ovilus, for instance, a very expensive piece of equipment, is a one-off for most people. So, but you can flip it and say, well, you know, when you go in private homes, you know, it's a totally being on a public event is totally different to a private one. You've got to it's very hard to describe because you're playing with people's emotions essentially when you go into private. So that's where the professionalism comes in, and that again, where I've mentioned before, being professional, that is where you've got to be professional. You're going into a person's home, you've never met this person, and you need to make sure you're giving them the correct advice, which is very hard in the field we do, simply because we can't say, there's nothing we can really say is the correct advice because nobody knows. It's very experimental. So privates for us are something we do very more than any, public events. So yeah, we do private homes as well as public events. One thing what we don't do is we never charge to go into somebody's home. So an example is you go onto our website or you call us and you send an email in, and we get it, and you're saying your house is haunted, or you're just saying you're hearing noises or something like that. We never turn around and say, right, it's X amount to come and investigate. We never charge. The only thing we ever charge for when it comes to private investigations will be travel fees. So for a good example is, we're Derbyshire based, so if somebody was to ask for us to go down to London, we would probably charge a travel fee, simply because it's well out of our catchment area, and it would probably actually cost us quite a bit to go down there. And also it probably wouldn't be the ideal situation to go all the way down there, spend all night till early hours of the morning and then drive back. So 9 times out of 10 we have to look at the costs involved in actually coming down, but it's usually only a travel fee, and we try and keep them as minimal as possible. I always think that if something's so serious in your home, you'll do anything to try and find advice, or do anything to try and think, and that's why we don't set a flat charge for coming in. We only charge the travel, because that's the only fee we get, so that's the only fee you should get. So comparing it to public events is totally different. Public events, we need insurance, so that's an extra cost. And then there's the cost of our equipment. The equipment we use isn't cheap. So you come on our event, some of the equipment that you're holding, I mean, one piece of equipment, or what we very rarely let the public use, is you're talking it's £300 to £400, and that's just a ballpark figure. Sometimes this piece of equipment can go for more, because there's only so many of these pieces of equipment made. So there's a lot more to it than that. But no, we never charge for private investigations. One thing that we can't guarantee is activity, and I say this every time before again, this is mainly public events really. We can't, it's the one thing I stress to everybody. I mean, you've paid to come on, I mean, let's give an example. You paid 25 quid to come on an event, and usually they're advertised as, come and hunt for a ghost, or come and be a paranormal investigator for the night. And one thing you have to understand is, you may have a boring night, or you may have a really exciting night. But what you have to remember is, none of us are in control of that. We can't guarantee things are going to happen. It's something nobody can really guarantee unless they're staging the whole thing. You can't guarantee genuine paranormal activity. It just doesn't happen. And it's one of them things that for public events is, I won't say disheartening for us, but I always think, I don't like people to come and pay to come on an event and they don't enjoy themselves. So what we try and do, if there's no activity, we try and, I won't say entertain the public, but entertain them in a way that's not, faking, that kind of thing. So that, should we not get EVPs or see anything, you still have a good night, and you learn new things like using the equipment and things like that. Because there's a lot more to just seeing or hearing a ghost on investigations. It's an experience in itself. And me myself, going back to the very beginning of being an investigator, the whole thing is an experience. So coming on these events are, for some people, one-off. Some people have never been on a paranormal investigation, so it's kind of a one-off experience in general. There'll be people that come that are real skeptics, there'll be people that come that aren't skeptics, and there'll be people that come that have never been at all and just generally interested because they've seen it on TV. So for us, it's kind of one of them things that, you get different people, so we can't guarantee, activity in any way. Some people will believe it, some people won't anyway. So some people may enjoy themselves even if you see stuff, and then some people might not. So yeah, we can't really guarantee activity anywhere, and that's the same for us when we go out and do our own investigations. We can't guarantee activity. If we go into somebody's home, we may go to their home, nothing happens, but they're saying things are moving. So it is one thing we can't guarantee. So no, we can't guarantee activity at all. We use various different ways to communicate with spirits. One of the tools that we use that's actually quite rare to see from a lot of teams is we use something called dowsing rods. Now that is a very old-fashioned technique, and we use it quite often. A lot of teams don't. A lot of teams just tend to go around with their EMF meters, that kind of thing. But we tend to use dowsing rods quite often, and we do get quite good results with them. Many events we go on, we tend to get people that go, oh, I've never seen that piece of kit before, I've not seen that on TV or whatever, what are they? And it's very surprising how many people have never seen a dowsing rod before. It's literally, a piece of equipment. I mean, they're originally used for finding water. That is their kind of, but they have many other purposes, and one of them for us is for spirits. A good example is a dowsing rod. We would say, open to say yes and close to say no, or to try and answer questions. So they're very useful for asking questions. We use a lot of mainly digital equipment though, and the reason behind that is not because it captures ghosts, but it's simply to prove to somebody else that there's something going on. Because I think everybody, the best piece of equipment is you'll pick up on these things. The body is a very, very adaptive tool for picking up. You've got the sensors of static where your hairs go up, you've got the hearing for hearing all them disembodied voices, which probably you do or don't want to hear, and then you've got your sight. We only think we can see certain spectrums, but people do see things. So can some people see things more than others? Just like when you've got people that are mediums, they can see and hear more than we can. So maybe some people are got more of a perception to it than others. So when it comes down to equipment and trying to actually prove things, you're only really using video cameras, things like that, to prove. So a good example is you see a figure walk past you clear as day with your own eyes. If you've got a video camera and that video camera picks it up as well, you're then proving to anybody else that what you've seen is correct and you're not just seeing things. Or a good example, same thing again, you see a figure go past, but you haven't got a video camera, but the EMF meter starts spiking. Again, it corroborates the two. It's like, well, it's a bit unusual that that's going off at the same time. And it's the same thing with any piece of equipment. If a piece of equipment goes off at the same time, you'll see or hear something. Yes, it doesn't prove it, but it also corroborates it a little bit and gives that extra piece of evidence. We always say normally about 2 pieces of things in camera. So an EMF meter and maybe like the ovulus or something else, some sort of device that maybe can prove it with what you've seen at the same time. So if you've got them 2 pieces of equipment, it's excellent. But yeah, there's no piece of equipment that's ideal, so just use yourself. We use various different ones, but it's whatever works for you. I think the strangest case for me, I mean, all cases that we investigate are simply strange because it's part of the work we do, and the work we do is strange. But I think the one that sticks out most recently is an old 18th century building that we did. And it was that strange that it actually got featured on a TV program called Paranormal Captured. And the most strangest part about it was, I was talking to you just like I am now, and literally a door slammed. We didn't know it was a door at the time. We knew it was either a door or a window or something that must have been able to move kind of thing, but we didn't know at the time which door it was. But on the video footage, you actually see me all shocked. I'm like, what the hell was that? And it turned out to be the attic door. Now at the time we didn't realise what kind of night we was in for, basically, because nothing had happened previous times. We've been several times and nothing very rarely happened. But this time, like I say, it was like the paranormal switch was on. It was just constant. So what we decided to do, went down after doing that bit of footage, just have a bit of a drink, and all we could hear every time we opened the door again, you heard it slam. Went back up, opened it, slammed it again, kept doing it numerous times, and was like, right, we need to, almost like stake this out. We need to sit and see if it does it on cue. So what we did is one of all the investigators, we basically pinned the camera on it. And as you see on the footage, it literally just slams shut. And what's so strange about it is, I know that door takes a lot of force to shut it. And I still can't explain it today. And one of the things I said was that if you can explain it, I'm all ears, because I can't personally explain how it should. I've tried backdrafts with opening doors and closing doors. Nothing seems to have and for me that's what's so strange about it, and that's what makes me think possibly it's one piece of evidence that I feel we've tried to debunk but can't. And that's what makes it such a strange case, and the fact that it never happened before. It was very quiet, so it was almost like it was the right time. But was that maybe what we call as like residual energy? You know, it was the right time, right place, and it was where somebody used to walk through and slam the door maybe, because it hadn't done it before. I don't know, but for me that has got to be one of the strangest ones most recently that I've experienced. If I think about it, since I've started, there's only been 2 occasions where I've been, I wouldn't say terrified. Terrified's kind of like, for me, terrified's like running off screaming like a little girl or something. I wouldn't say I've ever got to that stage, but I think where I've almost gone out my comfortable zone, as I'd call it. When I first started, we did a kind of a test investigation. And I was very inexperienced. I mean, everybody starts off like that. You start that in anything. And I think I was very kind of a little bit trying to want things to happen a little bit too much. And maybe I, disturbed some spirits a little bit too much, because I was asking for things to happen too much. And I think I probably asked for more than I could handle at the time. And that was I just basically was asking out. And the best way of describing it was, I felt almost like something went through me. It was almost like when you go over a bridge and you feel like your heart jump. And that was the experience I felt. And the thing is, what scared me the most about it was, because I didn't know it was going to happen. I was standing there asking questions, trying to force something to respond. And I got the response, but I think I didn't expect it in that way. But that was kind of, I won't say terrifying for me, but it was unexpected for me. Especially when you first start. But the second occasion was probably, it wasn't terrifying, but I'd probably deem as more of a terrifying occurrence, was when we was at an old warehouse, an old railway warehouse, and we was in the bottom half of the building, and unknown to me at the time, apparently some little boy in the history books actually burnt in that area, basically when the place caught fire, and he burnt to death. And I didn't know this at the time. None of this was told at the time. And the best way I can describe it is I turned round, and you see this on camera footage. You don't see the figure, but you see the way I experience it. And all I can describe it to you is almost like I could see a face. I can't say if it was a child, because it was kind of, the height didn't match a child. But what I saw was basically half a face, and that half of that face was burnt. And it's so vivid in my memory. I can't describe it right down to a T to you, but I can kind of see the picture. I can never forget that image. And it did scare me at the time. I literally was swearing on camera, because I was the only one that saw it. But it became more known to me when I found out later, when our investigators did a bit of research on the building, and then found out that obviously this little boy had died in the fire. So it was really interesting that the two linked together. I'm not saying it was a little boy, but it was interesting that I'd seen this face, and the history thing. And what made it more disturbing, which kind of tipped it over the edge, was we did another investigation local to it, and we randomly just asked a person that was in this location. It was a pub that we did, and we just asked this person that was a regular in the pub, just did a little interview, and they didn't know me, and they mentioned about some flat that they was in, which was opposite this warehouse, and they said that apparently some little boy that had come to them, I think it was in a dream or something like that, or they're not sure if it was thing, but basically they saw this little boy, and they described the exact kind of scenario as I did. And that was the bit that, hold on a minute, I don't know this person. They've just basically described what I've seen, but wasn't even there. So for me, I wouldn't say terrifying moment, but for me that was probably, if you're going to say a most terrifying moment, then that was probably going to be my most terrifying moment at this present time. But I've still yet to be screamed like a little girl, as one would say. I think that's a bit of a, I think you may, some people may have their own view on that kind of question, really. I think my view sort of on the devil thing, I mean, I'm not religious, so, you know, I can't say I believe in the devil and I can't say I don't. But I think my view on the kind of devil approach, I think you've got inhuman and you've got human spirits. And some people would even probably say you've got other spirits as well as just your inhuman and human spirits. Because let's be honest, we don't know what it is we're talking to. But when we just look at, say, inhuman and human spirits, now people would class inhuman as the devil, them sort of things. Now I think there's two ways to view it. Just because something has scratched you or been, I'd probably say, negative towards you, and that could be in any way, push you over, maybe even just give you a very verbal EVP that doesn't sound very nice. That does not necessarily mean it's the devil you're dealing with, the 666 and all this stuff. It could just be a normal spirit that's passed on. Because let's be honest, we have, you know, people in our society, and you may even know people, you know, we're not all nice people, you know, and that doesn't necessarily, we don't suddenly become a nice person just because we've passed, you know, we've passed on. So, you know, when we pass on, we're still the same person. So you may be just dealing with a person that's not very nice or just doesn't like you. So you have to also treat it that way. You have to almost, I suppose you almost have to treat spirits a little bit like you would be able to see a normal person. Treat them as, you know, they would be treating you, and they might not be nice to you, and you know, you could be the same way back. But there is occasions you do have to be a little bit careful, because there is occasions that inhuman, devil, that sort of thing, can mock us as humans. A good example is when we get child spirits, and that's basically when, you know, you have to be very careful, because the devil is, or inhuman, have been known to kind of, I suppose, mock or imitate children, so that, you know, it kind of entices you to do something. So you have to be very careful between human and inhuman spirits. So I can't really say all negative spirits are the devil. I think it's personal interpretation of what you believe is going on. I always say, just be careful. You never know what it is you're talking to, and treat it like that. Because it's one thing I do say a lot to a lot of people is, especially if you get a family member come through, or you think it's a family member coming through, just be very careful, because you cannot be 100% sure that that person you're talking to is that family member. They may sound like that person, they may be saying things that are personal to you, but just be cautious. Not saying don't believe them, but just keep that caution, because if you were trying to almost imitate, that is what you would do. So just play everything very, very cautiously, regardless of what it is you hear, because remember, they essentially have the advantage over you. You can't see them, but they can see and hear you perfectly. So they have a massive advantage over what is going on with the situation. So just play it very careful. But like I say, it is all research, and that is why what we do is very, very unusual, and it comes with experience. I'd probably say the more experienced you are at being a paranormal investigator, you'll know probably what is necessarily inhuman and human. You get more tuned in, as I like to say. So yeah, don't think that every negative experience is necessarily the devil, because it may not. It just may be just somebody that's really, really annoyed at you and just wants you to leave their house or area. So yeah, don't treat it like that. Treat it how you think. I think the advice I would give to anybody starting on the paranormal is, before you go out on that first investigation, unless you've been on an event before, do a little bit of research about the place. And the key bit that a lot don't do is research your equipment. If you're taking any, I mean, if you're not taking any, then that's fine. But research your equipment. Cameras, that's kind of self-explanatory a little bit. But if you're using a piece of equipment like an EMF meter, anything that's, you know, a little bit more, if you're trying to capture EVPs and things like that, do a bit of research into the device you're using to figure out whether it works for you, whether it's suitable. I mean, to elaborate a little bit on that, is like EMF detector. Without going into too much detail, there's different styles of EMF detectors you can buy. Some work at different frequencies. Some are 3-axis and some are only single axis. And there's all different ones you can buy. So look at how each one works and see whether that'll be more fit for purpose. You should buy anything anyway. That's what you'd only buy it if you think it was going to do the job that you wanted it to do. So just make sure you do that research. And the other thing is, think about your safety. Now this is the one thing that I say to every investigator before you do any investigation. Think, right, I'm going to this place, you know, how safe is it? If you're going in a derelict building, you're walking around in the dark, you've got the perfect ideal scenario for falling over. You're walking around in pitch black. So just be mindful of what obstacles you may think, because especially if something, you know, does jump out of the blue, you're not going to be in the frame of mind. You're going to be looking for that door as quick as possible, especially on your first investigation. So just think of your safety. Think about, you know, how you're going to get out. Where's your nearest door? You don't need to write these things down, but just mental note them so that you've got like a plan in place, especially if you've got other people with you. A good thing to have in place is communication between team members. If one person's going to go off, make sure you're in communication with that person quite regular, because yeah, it might not be paranormal. They may fall down somewhere, and if they fell down, you're not going to know where they are. If you're not in communication with them, you're not going to know, and you're not going to know where they are. So it's not always necessarily about the spirits that you're going to worry about. You've got to worry about the things that are, or the hazards that are already there. And I always say that a lot to people, simply because that is the one thing that people forget. They go to places and that the safety bit just goes out the window, which I'll be honest, when we first started, it did go out the window a lot for me, because it's the excitement of getting out there and investigating. So just think about everything as a bigger picture. You don't have to write it down, just think about things that may happen, and if they do happen, what are you going to do about it? Just do your research. And one of the other key things is, and it's one of my kind of sayings is, you know, if you're going out there and you're investigating, don't do what the TV does, and don't do what I do. Do what's best for you. One of the sayings is, don't emulate others, go and investigate. You know, don't emulate, investigate, because you don't want to do what other people do, because that will not work for you. And just because they use it on TV, why have you got to use it? All they're doing by putting it on TV is they're endorsing that product. Don't use it just because it's on TV. Sometimes the best thing to do is go out with no equipment at all and just use cameras. So that in itself, for me, sums up what I would give to a new investigator. It's very, very hard to tell you everything. You don't know until you go on that first investigation what's going to happen and how you're going to react. It all comes with experience. So just get out there and investigate.